Today, I'm going to be going back and playing Kingdom Hearts, a 2002 action RPG developed by Square, who later became a part of Square Enix. This game is about a boy named Sora who battles the forces of darkness with his trusty weapon, the Keyblade, as he travels across various worlds looking for his lost friends, and along the way he forms new bonds with different Disney and Final Fantasy characters. We're going to go through this game level by level and world by world to see if this game holds up. The release that I'll be playing is the version on the HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix collection. For a brief history of Kingdom Hearts 1's different versions, the game was originally released in Japan in March 2002. In September that same year, the North American version of the game was released, and it actually had brand new content not featured in the Japanese version, most notably brand new optional bosses. A few months later in December, Japan got an updated re-release of the game called Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, which included the new content in the North American release, as well as some brand new content, like new weapons, new abilities, and strangely, it recolored quite a few of the enemies in the game. In 2013, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix got an HD remaster released as a part of the Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 remix on PS3, and that was later included as a part of a larger collection called the HD 1.5 plus 2.5 remix released in 2017 on the PS4. There are 3 difficulty modes in this release: beginner, standard, and proud mode, which is the hard mode of the game. I'll be playing this on the standard difficulty as I want this to be a simple, casual playthrough that someone playing this game for the first time would experience. With all of that out of the way, let's get started. After a pretty cool opening CGI movie set to the Russell McNamara Planet B remix of Utada Hikaru's Simple and Clean, the game starts off with our main character Sora standing on an image of Snow White from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This place is called Dive to the Heart, and it's actually one of my favorite locations in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. The stained glass pictures of the various characters are gorgeous. This area serves as a tutorial where the game teaches us the basics of the gameplay, like jumping, locking on, interacting with objects, etc. Things get interesting when the game offers us a choice. We can choose between 3 weapons: a sword, a shield, and a staff. I'm pretty sure most kids started with the sword, and I know I did, but I wanted to shake things up a bit, so I went with the staff this time. The weapon that you choose determines how early you unlock specific abilities. By the end of the game, you will have all of the same abilities no matter which one you choose, it's just the order is drastically different. For example, because I picked the staff, at level 6 I'll be learning Stun Impact, an AoE finishing move that can leave enemies in a daze. If I were to have picked the sword, I wouldn't have learned Stun Impact until level 51. However, because I chose the staff, I won't get access to the very useful guard ability that lets me block enemy attacks until level 33, while the sword gets it at level 24, and shield gets it as early as level 15. So, the weapon you choose is actually pretty important, but to make things even more interesting, after choosing which weapon to keep, you have to choose a specific weapon to sacrifice. I decided to sacrifice the shield because who needs defense when you can smack things in the head really hard? The combination of the weapon that you choose to keep and the weapon that you choose to sacrifice will determine your stats and the number of item slots that you have. For example, if you choose to keep the staff and sacrifice the shield like me, then you'll have a fairly high strength stat, the highest possible MP, and the highest possible AP. MP is used for casting magic, and AP is used for equipping special abilities like the aforementioned Stun Impact and Guard. However, the downside to my build is that I'll have the lowest possible defense in the game, and the lowest number of maximum item slots in the game as well. The simple and clean rundown of the system is, if you choose the staff, you'll have a magic build; if you choose the shield, you'll have a defensive build; and if you choose the sword, you'll have an offensive build. Ultimately, it's up to you how you want to build your character. After making the choices to determine our build, we finally come face to face with our first enemy, Shadow Heartless. The Heartless are the main enemies that you'll be fighting over the course of the game. We'll be learning more about them later, but essentially, they are beings of darkness that prey on hearts. Hearts in the Kingdom Hearts series are basically like someone's spirit or someone's soul in a metaphysical sense. After defeating the shadows, we do some more tutorial stuff, and then the music starts to ramp up. It seems like we're getting ready for a boss fight, but no, we're outside now. Or at least we're in an imaginary version of what outside looks like. We have some choices to make. There are 3 characters here: Selphie, Wakka, and Tidus, who we will meet later in the real world, but for now they exist as figments of our imagination. Each character will ask you a question. You can choose to answer honestly if you're aiming for peak immersion, but the purpose of the questions is to determine how fast you level up. By choosing the top options, your journey will start at dawn, meaning you will level up quickly in the early game from level 1 to level 50, but your leveling up will slow down in the late game from level 51 to level 99. If you choose the middle options, your journey will start at midday, meaning you will level up at a consistent rate from the beginning to the end of the game. If you choose the bottom options, your journey will start at the dead of night, meaning you will level up slowly in the early game, but your leveling up will be fast in the late game. I chose to start my journey at the dead of night because I'm the kind of guy that likes having something to look forward to. Things may be rough in the beginning, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. After answering the questions, we're taken back into the empty void with the stained glass floor, and suddenly our shadow starts to come to life. It grows bigger and bigger, becoming Darkseid, a humongous Heartless with a huge heart-shaped hole in its chest. Man, I was terrified of this guy as a kid. This guy's design is just so sick. You don't actually have to win the Darkseid fight, so even if you lose, the story will continue. This is pretty common in the early game of Kingdom Hearts, which I actually really like since this is Sora when he's first starting his journey, so it makes sense that him losing is a reasonable outcome for the story. After fighting Darkseid, we fade into the darkness as the narrator tells us that we are the chosen one. I know it's a really minor thing, but one thing that I love about this game is that even though it has voice acting, sometimes characters will just speak in subtitles. It elicits this creepy and sort of otherworldly feel to it that's just so cool. With Dive to the Heart finished, it's time we move on to the first world of the game, Destiny Islands. Sora has been napping, but he's brought out of his half-asleep daze by a Kairi jump scare. Whoa! Kairi is one of Sora's closest friends who lives on the islands. His other close friend is Riku, who is kind of like the big brother of the group and also Sora's rival. The three kids that we saw in our dream live here as well, but they're honestly just background decorations. Sora, Riku, and Kairi dream of building a raft and leaving their island to explore the other worlds that are out there. They know other worlds exist because Kairi herself wasn't born on Destiny Island. She came here as a kid and met Sora and Riku, who were already living here. It's pretty obvious that both Sora and Riku have a crush on Kairi, another thing that fuels their rivalry. When they decide to race each other to determine who gets to name the raft that they'll use to travel to other worlds, Riku declares that the winner will get to share a Paopu fruit with Kairi. Paopu fruits are star-shaped fruits that, if shared between people, bind their destinies together. It doesn't matter if you lose the race though, because Riku will say that he was just joking. The main thing that you do on Destiny Islands is look for stuff to help build the raft and get ready for the voyage. One of the things that you'll probably notice as you spend time looking for items is that Kingdom Hearts is actually a platformer. Usually when referring to Kingdom Hearts' genre, you'll probably hear people call it an RPG or an action-adventure game, and both of those things are true, but there is quite a lot of platforming as well, which I don't mind. Kingdom Hearts is one of those games that's hard to put into a box. There's platforming, puzzle solving, hack and slash action, RPG mechanics, and even space shooter segments. Not every gameplay style is amazing, but Kingdom Hearts does a surprisingly good job at bringing all of these styles together to make a really engaging adventure. But we'll talk more about all of that later. Let's get back to the humble Destiny Islands. While on the island, you can challenge some of the other kids to battle you, which is a pretty good way to get familiar with the game's combat. The combat is pretty simple. Sora can do a basic 3-hit combo that you can later upgrade to add on more hits to the combo, change up the finishing strike, and deal more damage. One of the cool things about Kingdom Hearts' combat is that if you time a hit at the right moment, you can parry your enemy's attack, which will earn you tech points. Tech points are basically another name for experience, so you can actually level up by just parrying enemy attacks. You can fight Tidus, Wakka, and Selphie, or all three at the same time if you're feeling like the main character of an anime. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention that Tidus, Wakka, and Selphie are our first Final Fantasy characters. Tidus is from Final Fantasy X, Wakka is also from Final Fantasy X, and Selphie is from Final Fantasy VIII. You can also fight Riku, and Sora even keeps score of who's won and lost the most amount of times in their bouts. While getting all of the stuff ready to leave in a cave, Sora takes a break to draw a picture of him giving Kairi the Paopu fruit on one of the cave walls. While in there, Sora ends up meeting a strange man in a long robe with his face completely obscured. He's supposedly from another world, but he doesn't reveal anything at all about what's out there. He just kinda calls Sora dumb the whole time that they talk. While all of this is going on, we get a few scenes of our classic Disney characters, Goofy and Donald, who serve King Mickey. Mickey has left his castle and he leaves a letter saying he's going to investigate the stars in the sky that are vanishing. He tells Donald and Goofy to look for the key, and so Donald, Goofy, and their pal Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio set off in their gummy ship built by the Chipmunks, Chip and Dale, to find this so-called key. One evening, Sora and Kairi sit alone on a pier at sunset. Kairi all of a sudden says that Riku has changed, but she doesn't elaborate and suggests that her and Sora take the raft and leave together, just the two of them. She immediately says afterwards that she's joking, but it definitely seems a bit odd. The one thing that I like most about this scene is the cinematography. This is a nice looking shot here. Obviously, this is the HD release of the game and not the original PS2 version, but even so, for a remastered version of a game made in 2002, there's some cool looking scenes, camera angles, and visual effects. Earlier, I talked about Darkseid and how much I liked him, and a part of why I think he's so cool is his introduction scene. It really illustrates just how massive Darkseid is compared to Sora. Another cool effect I like is how the game often uses this sort of ghosting effect that gives the characters a supernatural feel to them. Speaking of supernatural feels, this next scene in the game is when Kingdom Hearts shifts from a fun adventure story about a bunch of kids going on an adventure to a cosmic horror story. A storm is brewing at night, so Sora goes to check on the raft. Also, we get the one and only appearance in this entire game of Sora's mother. Well, she doesn't actually show up, we just hear her voice.
Sora, dinner's ready. Come on down. Sora?
After leaving his house, Sora comes face to face with the Heartless he saw in his dream. Unfortunately, since this is real life and not a dream, the wooden sword that he uses to play around with his friends has absolutely zero effect on these creepy, nightmarish creatures. Luckily, he manages to find Riku. However, Riku, he's acting a little bit weird. He isn't the least bit bothered by all of the deadly monsters hanging around. In fact, he seems to be glad that the forces of darkness have made their way to the island, because now a way to the outside world has been opened. Riku allows himself to be taken by the darkness, but before the same can happen to Sora, he's saved by the light of a weapon known as the Keyblade. With the Keyblade in hand, you can now actually damage the Heartless. Riku has lost his marbles and is nowhere to be found. Maybe Kairi was actually onto something. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it's probably time to look for Kairi. Strangely, there's a door where the entrance to the cave where Sora met that robed man was. If you open the door and enter the cave, you see Kairi, but like Riku, she seems just a bit off. It's like part of her isn't there. But before Sora has any time to figure out what's wrong, a brown door inside of the cave opens, and the wind from the inside of the door blows Kairi away. She fades away just as Sora is about to grab her. That's weird. Eventually, the wind is too much for Sora to handle, and he's blown out of the cave as well. One side of the cave, Sora comes face to face with his good friend, Darkseid. This fight is basically the same as the first time you fought him in the dream, so here's a chance at redemption if you lost to him the first time. After the fight, Destiny Islands is engulfed in darkness, and Sora flies off into the endless void. Meanwhile, Donald, Goofy, and their dog Pluto, who I forgot to mention earlier, are walking around some sort of city, and they realize that a star has gone out, signifying that Sora's world is no more. This place that they're in is called Traverse Town, the second world that we'll be visiting, as well as the closest thing we have to a base of operations. Sora is woken up by Pluto, and after exploring the town a bit, we realize that this world is essentially a place for refugees from destroyed worlds. To make things even darker, the town is also trapped in a state of perpetual nighttime. Despite its somber atmosphere, the town itself isn't all doom and gloom. There's plenty of lights and color to give off some sense of hope. After walking around and just missing Donald and Goofy several times, eventually a guy named Leon pulls up on us. Leon being Squall Leonhart, the main character from Final Fantasy VIII. This is another fight that you can lose and the story will still progress. After getting knocked out by Leon, we see Riku wake up in this strange world filled with floating platforms. This is actually a scene that's new to Final Mix, which is apparent because they didn't get Riku's voice actor back to record lines. Honestly, I kinda wish they didn't include this scene. Not knowing where Riku is and if he's alive or not is one of the things that drives Sora and by extension, you as the player in the beginning of the game. Seeing where he is kind of ruins that mystery. However, this scene does give us our first glimpse at the game's main antagonist, Maleficent from the 1959 film Sleeping Beauty. Later, Sora wakes up in a hotel with Leon and Leon's friend Yuffie from Final Fantasy VII, who Sora mistakes for Kairi before coming to his senses. features. Meanwhile, Donald and Goofy meet Aerith from Final Fantasy VII. While Aerith is giving exposition to Donald and Goofy, Leon and Yuffie give exposition to Sora. The Heartless are beings who are attracted to the darkness in people's hearts, and they've traveled to other worlds in order to take more hearts. Sora's heart is number 1 on their hit list because he has the Keyblade, a weapon that they fear. The Heartless are quite mysterious creatures, but luckily, a man named Ansem has been researching them. Unfortunately, Ansem's reports have been lost, scattered all over the different worlds. After our little kickback gets interrupted by a soldier Heartless, Sora finally meets Donald and Goofy. These guys will be our first party members. They're controlled by the AI, although you can change how that AI functions by altering how frequently they perform certain actions, like how often they use healing items. This is a really welcome feature since you can cater your party members to your playstyle. After defeating a few Heartless goons, we come face to face with our next boss encounter, the Guard Armor. Guard Armor is split into 6 pieces: the head, the body, the 2 arms, and the 2 legs, and each body part can move independently. By destroying the individual body parts, you can get orbs that'll restore some of Sora's health. Enemies either drop health orbs that heal you, MP orbs that restore MP, money that you can use in stores to buy stuff, and items. After defeating the Guard Armor, Sora joins up with Donald and Goofy so he can look for his friends, although Donald and Goofy aren't even sure if he'll be able to find them. They just invite him along because he has the Keyblade and in order to help find King Mickey. After our main trio is officially formed, we get a scene showing us all of the Disney villains that are conspiring together. Hades from Hercules, Jafar from Aladdin, Ursula from The Little Mermaid, Captain Hook from Peter Pan, Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas, and the previous villain that we saw, Maleficent. At this point, we aren't sure what their goal is, but we know that it's not good. Donald teaches us our first magic power, Fire, which is a homing projectile that can hit enemies at a distance. Goofy also teaches us Dodge Roll, which is an evasive move that gives us a few moments of invincibility. At this point, we can actually start our adventure. We can travel to other worlds with our gummy ship. By finding different gummy ship pieces, we can even customize our ship to our liking. Personally, I don't really mess around with this feature too much. I usually just use the preset blueprints. Traveling to other worlds is done by playing Star Fox 64 essentially, as we're thrown into these on-rail shoot-'em-up segments. I don't hate these, they're pretty harmless palate cleansers that don't last too long, though I probably would honestly prefer if they weren't here. We have 2 new worlds available to us at the start: Wonderland from 1951's Alice in Wonderland and Olympus Coliseum from 1997's Hercules. The interesting thing about Olympus Coliseum is that it's entirely optional. Kingdom Hearts has a ton of worlds that aren't required for you to finish to beat the game. Wonderland is mandatory, so let's head there first. In Wonderland, after meeting a talking doorknob, Alice is being tried for attacking the Queen, although clearly she's innocent. Donald and Goofy don't want to interfere because outsiders like them shouldn't interfere with the proceedings of other worlds. This is called meddling. Sora doesn't care at all though, so he offers to help find evidence of Alice's innocence. You find evidence by looking all over the world. If you haven't realized it by now, Kingdom Hearts has an emphasis on exploration. The game will often just throw you into a world and make you figure out where to go. The worlds usually aren't very big, so it honestly isn't bad, but it can be annoying sometimes. Personally, I prefer it if a game tells me where to go, but it lets me explore if I want to. But anyway, there are 4 pieces of evidence, but I only found 3. Having more evidence makes it more likely to prove Alice's innocence, but the Queen is a stubborn gal, so she'll imprison Alice anyway. The only difference is, if you prove Alice is innocent, Donald and Goofy don't start the next battle locked up in cages. I say next battle because the Queen sends her card soldiers to attack us, and this was the moment I realized I may have made a mistake all the way back when I made the choices for my character build in Dive to the Heart. If you remember, I sacrificed the shield, meaning my defense is really low. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world except for the fact that I also chose to start my journey at the dead of night, meaning I'll also be leveling up slowly in the beginning of the game. The beginning of the game is also going to be when you don't have access to a ton of equipment or abilities to help keep you alive. What I bring all this up to say is, I got demolished by these guys. My choices led to my early game being pretty brutal, which is crazy because I'm only playing this game on standard difficulty, but I kind of like how Kingdom Hearts in a way lets you adjust the difficulty of the game beyond just choosing beginner, standard, or proud mode at the beginning of the game. This boss fight actually took me a few tries to beat. What you have to do is destroy this tower in the center of the room. Once you finish the fight, it's revealed that Alice has gone missing. By lighting these candles in the upside down room, we attract the attention of the boss of this world, the Trick Master Heartless. This guy I managed managed to beat on my first try, but he can be dangerous if you aren't careful. He can light his little baton things on fire, which lets him shoot fireballs at you. He's also a pretty tall guy, so you'll have to jump off of the table or the chair in the middle of the room in order to reach him with your melee attacks. Or if you're good at timing, you can actually get him with well-timed jump attacks. After damaging him enough, he'll get stunned and crouch down on the ground for a while, allowing you to attack him easier. Eventually, I managed to beat him, and it's then that Sora and Co. see a keyhole inside of the doorknob's mouth. The keyhole resonates with Sora's Keyblade, causing the Keyblade to shoot a beam that locks the keyhole. After that, we get a new magic power, Blizzard. Blizzard is kind of like a shotgun with a wide spread that's really useful for dealing with enemies up close or enemies bunched up together in a group. Wonderland is a pretty decent first world that introduces many of the concepts that would become important for the rest of the game, like meddling, keyholes, and the overall structure of the Disney worlds. With Wonderland finished, our next stop is Olympus Coliseum. While Olympus Coliseum is entirely optional, I do want to at least visit all of the worlds because each one does have something interesting to talk about. This world is quite different from all of the other worlds because it's not so much about adventuring and exploring. This world is basically one big tournament arc. Sora and Co. meet Phil, who hosts battles in the Coliseum. In order to take part in the games though, first you'll have to prove yourself by beating these barrel smashing minigames in a quick enough amount of time. After finishing our training, we learn a new magic power, Thunder. Thunder causes bolts of lightning to rain down in the area that you're targeting. It's a great move for crowd control. Getting Thunder is one of the reasons why you should consider taking a stop to this world. Phil decides to be a jerk because even after finishing these trials, he still doesn't let you participate. Luckily, we get a visit from Hades, who gives us an entry pass for the games. Thanks, I guess. The first cup in the games is the preliminaries. Each round we fight a group of Heartless, and by winning, we continue on to the next round. After the first round is over, we meet eyes with another participant in the games, Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII, rocking a sick new design. Cloud is actually working for Hades, who's trying to kill Hercules. Eventually, we make it to the final round of the games where we have to fight Cloud. This is another battle where the outcome doesn't matter. If you lose, Cloud decides to spare your life, but he's ambushed by the three-headed giant dog Cerberus. The hero Hercules manages to hold off Cerberus, allowing us a chance to escape. At this point, you're free to leave, but I wasn't about to leave my guy Herc hanging, so I went back to fight the Cerberus, which was a terrible idea because this dog also kicked my butt. He can attack you with all three heads, which gives him a much bigger range of attack than you'd think. He can also shoot fireballs at you, but you can knock them back at him with a well-placed swing of your Keyblade. This is a boss fight where having the guard ability would be really useful because you just have to use guard to deflect the fireballs. After a few tries though, I managed to defeat him. The Coliseum is pretty wrecked after all of the fighting, so we'll have to wait a while for the next tournament. We managed to have a brief conversation with Cloud on our way out.
Hey, are you alright?
Yeah. And he gives us a new ability, Sonic Blade, which is a move that he does to you during your first fight with him in the games. Sonic Blade is a series of dash attack thrusts with Sora's Keyblade that can potentially rack up a decent amount of damage if you hit your enemy with a lot of the thrusts. After leaving, we get a short cutscene of Hades who's plotting his revenge. And suddenly, Maleficent shows up while he's throwing a tantrum. Olympus Coliseum isn't officially done yet, it's more like we're taking a quick interlude, so we'll be back. Our next stop is the next mandatory Disney World, Redacted. Sorry, I meant to say Deep Jungle from 1999's Tarzan, the most recent Disney World featured in the game at the time the game came out. Deep Jungle is really interesting because it hasn't appeared in any other Kingdom Hearts games aside from this one and its remakes. Even games that recap the events of KH1 don't feature Deep Jungle, likely due to rights issues with the Tarzan franchise. In KH1 though, Deep Jungle is probably one of the weaker worlds. It's a jungle, so naturally it can be pretty confusing to navigate. Eventually you do get the hang of it, and I like how the Heartless don't show up in this world until after you've had some time to get used to the world's layout. But even still, getting around this place is annoying with all of the vine swinging and running back and forth between areas to progress. Also, none of the gorillas in this world talk, which leads to some really awkward scenes.
You see, I want to help them because, well, they need us.
Oh, did you get that?
The one redeeming part of Deep Jungle is that it is arguably one of the most narratively important Disney worlds in the game, if not the whole series. When Sora and Co first catch sight of Deep Jungle in the Gummy ship, Donald doesn't even want to stop there because he thinks that King Mickey would never stop at a backwater place like this. Sora obviously wants to at least check this world out in the chance that Riku or Kairi is here, but Donald does not care at all about Riku or Kairi, so Sora and Donald end up getting in a fight over the ship and they crash land in Deep Jungle. Due to the crash landing, Sora ends up being separated from the others. This world highlights that at this point in the story, Sora is not friends with Donald and Goofy.
Friends.
There's two of them. The loud one is Donald. You know what? Never mind.
Sora and Donald spend most of the world beefing with each other. Sora starts off in a treehouse where he's attacked by the tiger Sabor. This is another fight where the outcome doesn't matter. No matter what, Tarzan comes in to save you, and while talking to him, you get another hallucination of Kairi. Tarzan ends up becoming your first world-exclusive party member. I honestly don't really pay too much attention to the party members in this game. As long as they heal me and don't constantly die, I'm cool. But it is nice that we get to team up with some classic Disney heroes. After regrouping with Donald and Goofy, you collect these slides for this projector, and one of them is a picture of a castle that Sora has never been to before, but strangely it feels familiar to him. Eventually, the Heartless do arrive thanks to them being attracted to the darkness in the hunter Clayton's heart. Clayton serves as the boss for this world, although he has two phases. First, you fight him alone where he just blasts Sora in the face with a double-barreled shotgun. Then, in the second phase, he squads up with the Stealth Sneak Heartless, a chameleon-looking monster that can turn invisible. This boss ruined a lot of people when they played this game as a kid, myself included, and it even took me a few tries to beat him this time too. Dealing with both Clayton and the Stealth Sneak at the same time can be a hassle. This boss reminded me of one of the big hurdles of the early game of Kingdom Hearts: no quick, reliable way to heal. You can use potions mid-battle, but the issue with potions is that it actually takes a few seconds for Sora to use them. During that animation, enemies can still hit you, meaning you can die before the potion takes effect. You're going to have to find a safe place before using one of your potions. Fortunately, after beating Clayton and the Stealth Sneak, you learn easily the best spell in the game, Cure, which allows you to heal yourself or your allies, and the spell takes a shorter amount of time to use than popping a potion. While Cure, like all spells, consumes MP, one of the cool things about Kingdom Hearts is that you can gain MP back by attacking enemies. This is a great system because it encourages the player not to run away, but to get aggressive if they want to heal themselves. Sora and Co get thrown up to a new part of the map where they find a waterfall. Inside the waterfall, Sora and Donald finally make up, but not only that, we find another keyhole which Sora then seals. We get another cutscene with the Secret Society of Disney Villains. We get our first good look at Jafar, which is cool because he's from the next Disney world that we'll have to go to. Here we also learn that the villains are trying to collect princesses for some reason, and one of those princesses is Alice. Also, Sora, Donald, and Goofy learn Red Trinity, which I forgot to mention entirely earlier, but Trinities are little symbols you can find on the ground, and if you have Donald and Goofy as party members when you're near them, you can activate them, which can give you little goodies. Your last gift before leaving Deep Jungle is the Jungle King keychain. Keychains allow you to change the properties and design of your Keyblade. When I was a kid, I thought they were just giving you actual new Keyblades, but it really doesn't make any sense why there'd just be a million Keyblades lying around. But with Deep Jungle done, we are officially finished with the early game. Before we continue though, we're gonna have to take a trip back to Traverse Town to upgrade our ship. Like I said, Traverse Town is kind of like our base of operations to restock and regroup. While back in Traverse Town, we actually reunite with Riku. Strangely, Riku manages to wield Sora's Keyblade despite the fact that previously it was shown that the Keyblade will return to its master if it's taken from Sora. In any case, it's nice to see Riku, and Sora even invites him to join the party, but Donald is not feeling Riku at all, which causes Riku to leave off screen. We find Leon training in an underground cave that was previously inaccessible to us because it was locked behind a Red Trinity. He gives us a special gem called Earthshine and tells us to go find Sid from Final Fantasy VII, who is able to upgrade our ship with a warp drive for fast travel to previously visited worlds, as well as the ability to go to some new worlds. Sid gives us a book that we take to a new character, Merlin, from the 1963 movie The Sword in the Stone. Merlin lives in this rundown house behind a door that we have to use fire on to gain access to. The book is actually a new world, 100 Acre Wood from 1966's Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. 100 Acre Wood is another Disney world that is 100% optional. This world is basically just a minigame collection where Sora does different stuff with Pooh and friends. It's harmless, so if you do want to chill with some minigames, by all means check it out, although you'll need to find the rest of the torn pages of the book scattered around the mini worlds, just like the Ansem reports. Another bunch of stuff that's scattered around the mini worlds are the 99 Dalmatian puppies from the 1961 movie 101 Dalmatians. You can take these Dalmatians to their house in Traverse Town, and they'll give you rewards for finding them. I love how KH1 really encourages you to have a keen eye and search for cool stuff. Merlin introduces us to the fairy godmother from the 1950 movie Cinderella. She reveals that the special gem that Leon gave us is actually the spirit of someone whose world has been lost to the darkness, but their heart was strong enough to survive the destruction of their world. The person in this gem is Simba from the 1994 movie The Lion King. These gems allow us to summon these characters and make use of their power for a short amount of time. Simba allows us to charge up power and then have him release a mighty roar to deal damage to enemies. The summons themselves are pretty useful, but honestly, my favorite part about them as a kid were the awesome summon animations when you call them out. Sora does all these slick moves with the Keyblade, and then you get this great intro sequence with the summoned character. Merlin's house has one last trick, that being you can actually practice magic and combat on his furniture. What a nice guy. We have one last thing to do in Traverse Town, and that is a rematch against the guard armor. He's been in the lab though, because now he's swapped the places of his hands and feet. The guard armor is now the opposite armor. While he is a bit tougher, now that we have Cure, this fight isn't nearly as difficult and I beat him without too much trouble. By defeating him, we get a new spell, Arrow, which forms a barrier around Sora that decreases the damage that he takes from enemies. I have a feeling that with my low defense in this run, this spell will come in handy. After getting our new power of Wind, Sora finally seals the keyhole in Traverse Town. We meet up with the others in a vacant house, and we learn that 9 years ago, Maleficent brought the Heartless to the world that Leon, Yuffie, Aerith, and Sid come from, which is why they ended up in Traverse Town. Speaking of Maleficent, she's here in Traverse Town, hanging out with Riku, watching us as we're chilling with our new friends, and Riku is feeling a bit jealous. But with all of that out of the way, we can move on to our next world, Agrabah from Aladdin. This is personally one of my favorite worlds, despite the fact that usually I don't care for desert levels. It's this tightly packed city with all sorts of ledges, rooftops, nooks, crannies, and corners to platform on. When we first make it to Agrabah, we get a quick cutscene of Maleficent talking to Jafar. Jafar wants to find this world's keyhole, but Maleficent reminds him of the importance of finding the 7 princesses that they need to open the final keyhole. We end up meeting Jasmine, but she's kidnapped by Jafar. Then we meet Aladdin and his genie, who we team up with to rescue Jasmine. When we stop at Aladdin's house, Genie mentions that he's heard about the keyhole, which is a pretty neat bit of lore. Our search leads us to the Cave of Wonders. After a quick squabble with the entrance to the cave, we go inside and make it to the second part of Agrabah, the Cave of Wonders. And here there are all sorts of treasures to find, but our main goal is to defeat Jafar and save Jasmine. But before our fight, Sora catches a quick glimpse of Maleficent. The first fight against Jafar is pretty easy, just smack him around when he stops flying away. By defeating Jafar, we get our first magic upgrade. Blizzard gets upgraded into its second tier form, Blizzara. But like any good boss, he has a phase 2. Jafar uses the lamp that he stole from Aladdin to wish to turn himself into an all-powerful genie. Genie Jafar is probably easier than his first form. All you gotta do is hit the lamp that Jafar's bird Iago is flying around with. By defeating Genie Jafar, we get another magic upgrade. This time, fire changes into Fira. We do get one other new thing, and that is the first Ansem report. This report can be found in Jiminy's journal, and it's basically Ansem explaining how he believes that darkness exists within every heart, and that in order to protect his homeworld from the darkness, he has to learn more about it. Unfortunately, while we were busy picking up Ansem's diary, someone took the opportunity to kidnap Jasmine. A woefully somber end for the Agrabah arc, but hey, that's life. At least on the bright side, we get Genie as a new summon and a new keychain, which turns our Keyblade into the 3 Wishes Keyblade. But unfortunately, there's more bad news, because before getting all this new stuff, we find out that Riku was the one who kidnapped Jasmine, and he's been working with the bad guy so he can find Kairi. We could use a win right now, so let's raise our spirits by going back to Olympus Coliseum. Before we left for Agrabah, we were told by Chip and Dale that a new tournament was being held at the Coliseum. I like how new tourneys are held as the game goes on. It makes it feel like time is passing, and they serve as a nice way to take a break from all the adventuring and just have a good old-fashioned tournament arc. The new tournament is the Phil Cup. By completing it as a team, you get a new spell, Gravity. Gravity is a big black hole looking thing that causes enemies to lose a certain percentage of their health. Against weaker foes, it's not really that useful, but it's very effective against beefy foes with a ton of health. With a tournament win finally under our belt, we head off to our next adventure. Our next stop is, oh shoot, we just got eaten by a space whale. We arrive inside Monstro, our next world from the 1940 film Pinocchio. While it is mandatory that we arrive in Monstro, it isn't actually required that we complete it, so we can just leave. But we might as well finish it up while we're here, since it's a pretty short world. We quickly meet Pinocchio and his father Geppetto, who Donald and Goofy already know thanks to Jiminy, in case you forgot he's from this movie. But Pinocchio runs off, so we have to go looking for him. Monstro can be a bit confusing to navigate, but honestly, it's not too bad and it's over before you know it. During our search, we end up meeting Riku again, who's a whole lot more of a jerk this time around. He's slowly being gaslit by Maleficent into hating us. Pinocchio ends up captured by the Parasite Cage Heartless, but by teaming up with Riku, we're able to take down the Parasite Cage and free Pinocchio. We're not out of the woods yet because Riku doesn't exactly have Pinocchio's best intentions at heart. He wants to kidnap Pinocchio and use him to try and help Kairi, who seems to be in trouble. While Sora does want to help Kairi, using someone else to save her obviously isn't right, so Sora finally decides to stand up to Riku.
You'd rather fight me? Over a puppet that has no heart?
At least he still has a conscience. And it's telling me you're on the wrong side.
Riku leaves Pinocchio and dips out before we have a rematch with the Parasite Cage. After defeating the boss, we get our last brand new spell, Stop, which allows you to freeze enemies in time for a few seconds. For tricky enemies that like to move around a lot, this spell is really handy. Also in a chest, there's a new shared ability for the whole party, High Jump, which as the name would imply allows us to jump much higher than we could before, allowing us to reach new places to potentially find new goodies. We also get a cutscene with Riku, who's finally found Kairi thanks to Maleficent, although Kairi doesn't seem to be able to wake up. Maleficent's goal is to gather all 7 Princesses of Heart in order to unlock the final keyhole, which leads to the heart of all worlds where untold knowledge is said to reside. She tells Riku that by accessing this place of ultimate wisdom, there's a chance that he may find a way to get Kairi's heart and get her back to normal. Maleficent continues to plant the seeds of darkness into Riku as she gives him the power to control the Heartless. Monstro spits us out and we're sent back to Agrabah. Donald and Goofy suggest we go back to Traverse Town, which is a pretty good idea since by talking to Merlin, he gives us a new keychain, Spellbinder, which greatly increases our MP gauge. Considering I went for a magic build, this Keyblade got a fair amount of use from me. Something else that's worth checking out in Traverse Town is Geppetto's house. Luckily, he and Pinocchio made it here when Monstro spit us all out, and Leon got them set up with a place to live. I guess Leon has connections in the Traverse Town real estate market. Geppetto gives us some new ship blueprints, but the most interesting thing that he has is a chest in his house which contains the Wishing Star keychain. I never really cared for this one too much. The design makes it look like it's made of wood, its stats are unimpressive, and its reach sucks. The only thing I like about this Keyblade is that it emits some cool particles when you hit stuff with it. The particles are these cool gear shapes. With those errands out of the way, it's time we made our way to the next world. We have 2 choices, Atlantica from The Little Mermaid and Halloween Town from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, in order to continue with the main plot of the game, you need to complete 2 out of a group of 3 worlds consisting of Monstro, Atlantica, and Halloween Town. Once you finish 2 of them, the next mandatory story world will be unlocked. I'm going to be doing all 3 of the worlds though, because it just feels weird not to. I don't really want to do Atlantica, but given its reputation, I kind of have to go through it and give my thoughts. So we might as well get that out of the way first. Atlantica is no one's favorite Kingdom Hearts world. In fact, it's no one's 11th favorite Kingdom Hearts world. This world is often cited as one of the worst, if not the worst one in the game, and I was inclined to agree for many years. It can be easy to get lost here, and since we're under the sea, we have to swim. Donald used his magic once we got here to turn us all into fish, and side note, I think it's really cool that Sora and Co have different designs for this world. It's a nice change of pace that you don't expect. But anyway, back to swimming. Swimming doesn't work like it does in the other worlds. In Atlantica, we can swim on the X, Y, and Z axis. Up, down, left, right, forward, and back. Sometimes hitting enemies with your Keyblade can be a hassle because of all of the free space everywhere that enemies can spawn and move around in. In normal worlds, hitting enemies that are above you can be finicky, so imagine now having to worry about enemies that are below you too. With all of that being said though, I didn't really mind Atlantica. I know, crazy, right? The thing is, if you go into Atlantica with a mindset of, I just want to smack everything with my Keyblade and win, you're not gonna have a good time. However, if you use magic instead, Atlantica is actually kinda fun at times. Remember the Spellbinder Keyblade I got? Atlantica is a great place to use it, coupled with the fact that I made my Sora magic focused, made Atlantica enjoyable for me, at least a little bit. I do think that Atlantica still has the problem of being difficult to navigate, although it isn't too bad because the NPCs almost always tell you where to go or what to do next. There are only a handful of actually relevant places to the plot, so after you memorize where they are, getting through Atlantica really isn't that hard. As for the story itself, it's pretty simple. Like Sora, Ariel wants to explore new worlds, but her father, King Triton, ain't having it. Ariel gets mad, she gets manipulated by Ursula into helping her get Triton's trident, we have to fight Ursula in a 2-part boss fight, and we seal the keyhole. The only somewhat interesting thing that happens story-wise is we learn that King Triton actually knows about the Keyblade. Outside of the secret society of Disney villains, knowledge of the Keyblade isn't particularly well known, and Triton mentioned that Keyblade wielders are known to bring ruin and destruction everywhere they go, which is why he doesn't want us meddling in his world. Gameplay-wise, we get some new stuff, like we get an upgrade to Thunder, changing it into Thundara, we get a new Mermaid Kick shared ability that lets us do a dash in water to move faster, and we get the Crab Claw keychain, a solid Keyblade with a bonus to your MP that I ended up using for a bit. Now that we're not under the sea anymore, let's stretch our legs with another tournament at the Coliseum. This time we're taking part in the Pegasus Cup. I do like how the Pegasus Cup takes place at night, a nice little vibe change. The cup is pretty simple for the most part, although things get really interesting at the end because the final battle is against Leon and Yuffie. I remember being so shocked as a kid to see these two here. I guess they must have caught a ride up to the Coliseum to have some fun. I know I'm enjoying myself because I can finally have my get back for Leon wiping the floor with me back in Traverse Town. Eventually they go down like everyone else, and our prize is Sora learning a new move, Strike Raid, which lets him throw his Keyblade multiple times at enemies. Pretty cool. With that out of the way, it's time we head to Halloween Town, possibly my favorite Disney world in the game. Part of the reason why is because, like Atlantica, Sora and Co have unique designs here. They're made to look a whole lot more spooky to fit Halloween Town's creepy aesthetic, and I think that that's awesome. They even changed Sora's health bar icon to match his new look. As a fan of horror, this world just speaks to me. This world has one of the more interesting Disney World plots, which we immediately realize when we notice that the Heartless aren't actually attacking us. They're not hostile because they've been trained by Jack Skellington. Jack's associate Dr. Finkelstein has been experimenting on the Heartless, and he's trying to find a way to make an artificial heart. We have to go around getting stuff to help make the heart, but not before the Heartless go back to their old aggressive ways. The heart that Finkelstein makes gets stolen by a bunch of brats, and they take it to Oogie Boogie. We confront Oogie Boogie, and the interesting thing about this guy is that he has both my favorite and least favorite boss fights in the entire game.
Nobody disrespects me!
His first phase is really annoying because you're in this arena where he's above you and he throws these dice that cause random hazards to come at you. You have to wait to trap him by pressing one of these buttons when the buttons finally become active. Then the arena you're in rises so you can reach him to lay down some damage. But before long, you're knocked down and you have to repeat the process over again. Luckily, the second part of his boss fight is really awesome. Oogie Boogie fuses with his own house and becomes this huge monster that you have to climb up in order to destroy his purple weak spots. It's a great balance of platforming and combat that I really enjoy. Once we destroy all of his weak spots, the mana is gone for good, we seal the keyhole, we get an upgrade to gravity, and a brand new keychain, Pumpkinhead, which has good strength and great reach. Now we make our way to our next world, which is... oh shoot, we just crashed into another ship. I love how KH1 plays around with how you enter worlds, and it also messes around with what even counts as a world. This is Neverland, and we arrive on the deck of the ship that we just crashed into. We're greeted by Riku, who reveals Kairi to Sora, which would be nice except for the fact that Kairi is looking like a freshly picked vegetable. Riku shows off his new powers by making a heartless copy of Sora, and Sora is dropped into the lower part of the ship. Here, the main trio is reformed with a new pal, Peter Pan, although Peter is a bit of a jerk.
I'm Peter Pan.
I'm Sora.
Okay, we're in this together, but only till we find Wendy.
Honestly, I kinda like it. He's the first Disney World exclusive party member who doesn't really like Sora and co all that much. I also like Peter because he's a pretty strong fighter who can also fly. Peter says with a little bit of pixie dust we can fly too, but it doesn't quite work out so well for Donald. Neverland is alright, all you do is move around this ship, and it's really short so there really isn't much to talk about. Riku takes Kairi away while we fight Anti-Sora, and afterwards Sora politely asks Captain Hook where Riku took Kairi, and Hook tells us that they're headed to Hollow Bastion, Maleficent's lair. It's a nice way to foreshadow the next world we'll be going to because this is the last Disney World in the game. We can't leave for Hollow Bastion though because Captain Hook has a hostage, Peter Pan's friend, the pixie Tinkerbell. Hook gives Sora an option, either give up the Keyblade or walk the plank. And I guess Sora would rather die than let the bad guys have the Keyblade because it looks like he chooses to walk the plank. Sora hears Peter Pan say all he has to do to fly is believe, so with Tik-Tok the crocodile in the water below him, Sora jumps off and at the last second, he flies away. When I was a kid, this was the hypest moment ever. Sora can fly. Not only that, but we get an upgrade for Cure. Being able to fly in the air above the deck is amazing. I think part of the reason why it feels so good is because we spent the whole world trapped inside of that ship. And after that exhilarating experience, we face off against Captain Hook. One of the cool things about Hook is that if you hit him with fire magic, he runs around with his butt on fire. He goes down without too much trouble, and for our troubles, we get a new move, Ars Arcanum, a powerful string of Keyblade strikes. After all of that, we fly over to Big Ben. Yeah, the Elizabeth Tower, one of London's historical landmarks, just chilling in a Kingdom Hearts game. Not only is it in the game, but it's also where the world's keyhole is, which we find by changing the clock to 12 o'clock. After sealing the keyhole, we get a flashback to Sora and Riku's childhood where we see that door that blew away Sora and Kairi at the beginning of the game, but this time it has a keyhole on it. We also get a cutscene with Maleficent and Riku. Riku is feeling a little sluggish after traveling to Hollow Bastion using his powers of darkness. Luckily, or unluckily for him, Maleficent renews his darkness subscription, giving him even more power. Before leaving Neverland, we get the Fairy Harp keychain. A strong blade at this point in the game, albeit a bit on the short side. We also get a new shared ability, Glide, which lets us use a little bit of the power of flight that we got in Neverland to glide in all the other worlds. While it does suck that we can't actually fly in the other worlds, I think it makes sense in the context of the series, since the rules of other worlds are different, so flying isn't possible. But luckily, through our will and belief, we managed to keep some of that power, allowing us to still glide. We also get a new summon, Tinkerbell, aka the MVP, because she is by far my favorite summon in the game. Tinkerbell slowly regenerates your health over time, allowing you to focus on doing damage. And if an attack were to kill you, Tinkerbell can actually save you from dying at the cost of the summon ending prematurely. Tinkerbell also has some other cool perks that other summons don't get. The problem with other summons is that your other party members leave while the summon is active. But Tinkerbell plays nice with others because Donald and Goofy can still stick around. Not only is she sociable, but she also doesn't celebrate until the job is done because unlike other summons, she has no time limit. Tinkerbell is the GOAT. Every now and then, I might mess around with another summon if I'm feeling cute, but I always go back to Tinkerbell. I think from a level design and aesthetic perspective, Neverland isn't an amazing world, but from a story perspective, this is easily one of the most important worlds in the game, and because of that, I rank it pretty high on my tier list of KH1 Disney worlds. With Neverland done, it's time we take a trip back to Traverse Town to upgrade our ship, allowing us to go to a new world. While Sid is working on our ship, Sora gets a flashback, but not a flashback of his own memories. This time, it's one of Kairi's memories, where she's talking with her grandmother in a library. Her grandma gives us a little lore dump about how all of the worlds in the universe were once connected, but because people got greedy over the power of light, darkness spread, and all of the worlds ended up being separated. Sora comes back to his senses, and Sid finishes his upgrades, meaning it's time to go to Hollow Bastion. But first, another tournament. This time, the Hercules Cup. This tournament lets us have a run back against Cloud, which is cool. For beating Cloud, we even get a new keychain, Metal Chocobo. It doesn't have good magic, but it does have great power and great reach. The final match is a battle against the man himself, Hercules. Sora must be feeling pretty good because he tells Donald and Goofy to hang back so he can run the ones with Hercules. Hercules is kind of a joke. He has this aura that makes him invincible, but you can just throw these random barrels that are here at him, and it causes his invincibility to go away. Once he's not invincible, he's not too hard to beat. After winning the Hercules Cup, we prove ourselves to be true heroes, even though Phil won't admit it. Sora gives this speech about how thanks to his friends he can overcome any obstacle, even Hercules, but that doesn't really make any sense because Sora literally just told Donald and Goofy to leave so he could solo Hercules. But anyways, we get the Olympia keychain, which is a pretty solid Keyblade, and we also learn the Yellow Trinity, which lets us finally move this rock that Phil was trying to push when we first met him. And under the rock is the keyhole to Olympus Coliseum. This has to be the most mundane location for the opening to a World's Heart. I don't think I ever really went over what the keyholes are, but essentially they serve as a gate to a World's Heart. If a World's Heart is devoured by the Heartless, then it gets swallowed by darkness. By sealing the keyholes, we protect the world from getting completely destroyed. But that's enough lore, because we're gonna get plenty of that in the next world, Maleficent's headquarters, aka Hollow Bastion. As soon as you get to Hollow Bastion, you know this is gonna be a great world. The way the camera pans up with that ominous music as the world's logo fades in and the clouds obscuring the castle move away is done perfectly. It excellently shows the overwhelming scale of this place. This is a huge castle where the main antagonist is holed up, and now it's time we bust in there, rescue our girl, and save the day. At least, that's what you'd think is gonna happen, because as soon as we start making our way to the castle, we see Riku again, and he's talking to Beast from Beauty and the Beast. When his world fell to darkness, Beast was separated from his love, Belle, but through sheer force of will alone, Beast was able to travel to Hollow Bastion to come rescue her. Riku and Beast get into a fight, and Beast gets one shot, which is definitely not a good look for him, but Riku is not done violating because his next move is stealing our Keyblade. It was hinted at way back in our revisit to Traverse Town when we reunited with Riku that Riku also possesses the ability to wield the Keyblade. Riku proceeds with the disrespect by giving Sora one of the toy wooden swords from Destiny Islands, and to make matters even worse, since Donald and Goofy were told to follow the key by King Mickey, they abandon Sora and go with Riku. This is easily our lowest point in the game. We've lost our weapon, we've lost our pride, and most importantly, we've lost our friends. I remember hating Riku as a kid for this. I remember hating Donald and Goofy for turning their backs on Sora. We're stuck in a world that we don't know, with no weapons and no friends. But luckily, we do have one new friend, Beast. Both Sora and Beast are here to look for the women that they care about, and they ain't leaving empty-handed. Without the Keyblade, you can't hurt enemies with normal attacks, but you can still hit them and restore your MP. You can also still use magic, so you're not totally useless. And besides, who needs a Keyblade when you've got Beast, who, as his name would imply, is a beast? He's one of my favorite party members. We make our way to the castle gates, but unfortunately, Maleficent remembered to lock the door, so we have to go down into the depths of the basement under the castle, using these bubbles to travel amongst the different areas and find the switch to unlock the gates. Once we find the switch and go inside the gates, we come face to face with the traitor trio. Luckily, Beast is here with us. Well, that sucks. Riku starts flexing with his new skin-tight dark suit, but before he can hurt us, Goofy decides to come to his senses and save Sora, with Donald following right after. Sora then gives us his most iconic speech yet.
Although my heart may be weak, it's not alone. It's grown with each new experience, and it's found a home with all the friends I've made. I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
Despite only being 14 when KH1 came out in North America, Sora's voice actor, Haley Joel Osment, actually gives a pretty solid performance here. Before Kingdom Hearts' release, Haley Joel Osment was already an established child actor with roles in 1994's Forrest Gump, 1999's The Sixth Sense, and 2001's AI Artificial Intelligence. Speaking of voice actors, this game has a really great cast. Obviously, several of the voice actors for the various Disney characters reprised their roles from their movies. There were some notable absences, like Danny DeVito, who did not return to voice Phil, the late Robin Williams, who was alive at the time but did not return to voice Genie, and Eddie Murphy, who did not return to play Mushu. We haven't met Mushu yet, but we will get him as a summon fairly soon. While it is unfortunate that the original voices didn't return, one of the craziest role reprisals is Catherine Beaumont, who was the original voice of Alice from the 1951 Alice in Wonderland movie, which was released when she was only 13 years old, 50 years before Kingdom Hearts came out. Amazing. After Sora's great speech about how his friends are his power, the Keyblade realizes that Sora is its rightful owner, meaning we don't have to carry around that that stupid stick anymore. With our Keyblade in hand and our friends at our sides, it's time we finally fight Riku. He isn't hard to beat, even with his new dark powers boosting his abilities. We finally beat him, and with the fire of Sora, Donald, and Goofy's friendship relit, we get a new Trinity ability. That was great, but all of that was just the opening act to Hollow Bastion. The game knows that you're probably tired after all of that excitement, so we get some puzzle solving as a nice way to relax. We have to put these books in the right places in the library, and oh wait, this is the same library from Kairi's flashback. Kairi is from Hollow Bastion. Kairi not being from Destiny Islands is a plot point that was brought up at the beginning of the game, and it's only really talked about afterwards in flashbacks, so this was a nice surprise. Kingdom Hearts does a really great job of making the universe feel connected. There is another puzzle that we have to solve. There's this door that's locked and we need to find the pieces of this Heartless emblem on it to open it. By using thunder on this little stone here, we can get these platforms to move, allowing us to easily move from one floor to the next. One of the emblem pieces is found by lighting all of the candles in this room with fire magic. Earlier we could use Blizzard to freeze these bubbles at the entrance to Hollow Bastion, turning them into platforms, which we could then use to access some goodies. There are also these treasure chests that are sitting on top of these unreachable floating platforms. We can use gravity on these to pull the chests downward and gain access to them. Kingdom Hearts is chock full of places where we can interact with the environment, and I absolutely adore it. Several of the magic spells like Thunder, Gravity, and Stop are all completely optional depending on which worlds you complete, so the game really does reward you for going out of your way to get stuff. After finishing the emblem and going through the door, we get a short cutscene of Riku talking to a familiar sounding voice.
The heart that is strong and true shall win the Keyblade.
Billy Zane, aka the jerk from Titanic, aka the robe guy we met on Destiny Islands. Riku begins to ominously glow as the robe guy walks up to him. This is not looking good. With the puzzle solving interlude out of the way, now we can begin the second part of Hollow Bastion. Now we're back to fighting enemies all over the castle, and man is this castle awesome. Hollow Bastion is this fantastic assortment of ledges, balconies, elevators, and pillars. This level has a great sense of verticality to it. You really feel like you're climbing a huge fortress. What makes it even cooler is that this place is interconnected. You can use your new glide ability to go from one part of the castle to another, and if you fall down, you aren't instantly killed, you just fall down to a lower section of the place. And every section of this place looks great. I just love how Hollow Bastion blends these pipes, gears, and machinery with this elegant castle aesthetic. It almost feels as though the castle has been invaded by a harsh, uncaring presence. Eventually, we get another cutscene with Riku and Maleficent, but this time Riku is sounding a bit different.
So, I see the path has emerged at last.
I think he might have caught a case of the Billy Zane-itis. Not only that, but he's rocking a Keyblade of his own. Fortunately, it's incomplete as it was forged with only 6 of the 7 Princesses of Heart. We then enter this grand-looking chapel where we finally come face to face with Maleficent. She spins the battle riding on this stone platform which you can deal damage to in order to get it to fall, allowing you to strike Maleficent, or you can cheat by using gravity. In another case of Kingdom Hearts allowing you to interact with the environment in cool ways, by using gravity you can cause the platform to instantly fall, making this boss fight far easier. The dark meteor she sends at you can still be dangerous though, so be careful. After beating Maleficent, we get another Ansem report, and we head through this portal to come face to face with the newly possessed Riku, and his brand new Keyblade that has the power to unlock people's hearts. He gives us a free sample by unlocking the darkness within Maleficent's heart, transforming her into a dragon. The green flames that lingers on the ground can be annoying, but besides that, this was a pretty straightforward boss fight for me. Tinkerbell really came in clutch with this fight. Dragon Maleficent goes down, and for defeating a dragon, we get a dragon, Mushu from the 1998 film Mulan, as a summon. Mushu is alright. Honestly, every time I used him, I ended up dying, so he kinda became a bad omen for me. Besides, why use him when I've got Tinkerbell? We get a save point right before we make our way to our last stop in Hollow Bastion, the Grand Hall. Here, we find all of the captured Princesses of Heart, most of them being ones we've never met before, including Snow White, Cinderella, and Aurora from the 1959 film Sleeping Beauty. We go up some stairs, and for some reason, Goofy gets stopped from entering the final area. Possessed Riku tells Sora that Kairi is one of the 7 Princesses of Heart. Possessed Riku then tells us that the reason why Kairi has been asleep all this time is because Kairi's heart has been inside of us this entire time. On that stormy night in that cave on Destiny Islands when Kairi faded away as she reached Sora, her heart went into Sora's body. This has been hinted at all throughout the game, with Sora's hallucinations of Kairi, him feeling nostalgic when he saw the picture of Hollow Bastion in Deep Jungle, and the vision that he had of Kairi's childhood. If that twist wasn't enough for you, Possessed Riku also reveals that he is Ansem. Yes, the the wise man who Leon and the others saw as our hope for figuring out how to save the universe was actually the bad guy the entire time. Donald tries to stop Ansem, but he gets backhanded out of the arena. It looks like Ansem is about to kill Sora, but before he can,
Open the door! Lead me into everlasting darkness!
Sora!
this cutscene is ingrained into my psyche because in the original non-final mix release of Kingdom Hearts, you couldn't skip cutscenes. So if this guy killed you, and if you were a kid playing this game, he probably did kill you, you had to watch the whole thing over again. It's a cool cutscene, don't get me wrong, but seeing it 12 times, I don't know. This boss fight against Ansem was pretty tough back in the day, but honestly, I didn't have a problem with it this go around. The only part that'll probably give you a lot of trouble is when he goes crazy dashing all over the stage before ending his combo by stabbing his sword into the ground, causing a massive burst of dark energy. I really do like this boss battle. This is probably the most iconic boss fight in the game outside of maybe Darkseid. Ansem's using all of Riku's dark powers. You've got all of your brand new abilities, and you guys get to fight in a one-on-one with Kairi lying lifeless behind you. In any other circumstance, this might have been a nice reunion of the Destiny Island trio, but right now, it's a battleground. Eventually, we managed to beat Ansem, and for our troubles, we learn a new move, Ragnarok, which is a combo of Keyblade strikes followed by a blast of multiple projectiles. Ansem drops his Keyblade of Heart and disappears, but we still have to deal with the keyhole of this world. Unfortunately, since Kairi doesn't have her heart, the keyhole isn't finished yet, meaning we can't save this place. So Sora grabs Ansem's Keyblade that can unlock people's hearts, puts on a heroic smile for his friends, and punctures his own chest with the Keyblade. All of the hearts sealed inside of Ansem's Keyblade are sent back to their rightful places, and Kairi's heart is released from Sora, allowing her to come back to life with her fellow princesses of heart. The keyhole is completed as Sora begins to fade away.
Sora!
As Kairi wakes up, she sees Sora disappearing and she runs up to him, but unfortunately, he fades away right as she tries to grab him, mirroring how she faded away when Sora tried to grab her way back on Destiny Islands. Sora then falls into the dark abyss. Yeah, I bet you weren't expecting the main character to die in a Disney game, huh? This is probably my favorite cutscene in the game. I think it's partly because the boss fight before this was so hard as a kid, so this was like a huge payoff, but even to this day, like, the emotions in this scene, I'm not gonna lie, they get to me. With Sora gone, Ansem returns, this time in his true form. But before he can do any harm, Riku manages to hold him back with the little bit of control that he has left over his body, allowing Kairi, Donald, and Goofy to run away. But strangely, a Shadow Heartless is watching them as they leave. The cutscene ends, and we see the Heartless just standing there. Oh wait, we can control the Heartless! If you couldn't put two and two together, this is Sora, who's become a Heartless after his heart fell into darkness. All you can do is walk and jump around, but it is really neat to be able to play as a Heartless. As a Heartless, we make our way to the others, and while Donald and Goofy don't recognize us, Kairi realizes who we are immediately. When the other Heartless close in on us, Kairi protects Sora, and through her connection to Sora, she's able to bring Sora out of darkness.
Kairi, thank you.
The Heartless arc was short, but easily one of the most memorable moments in the game. With Kairi rescued, and Sora as a human again, we dip out of Hollow Bastion and retreat to Traverse Town, but not before saying bye to Beast, who wants to stick around to find Belle. While back in Traverse Town, we meet up with Leon, Aerith, and Yuffie, and Leon tells us that Jasmine hasn't made it back to Agrabah yet, even though she should be back to normal now that she has her heart again, which means the rest of the princesses must still be back at Hollow Bastion. Unfortunately, because Kairi's heart returned to her, the keyhole in Hollow Bastion was finished, allowing Heartless to flow into other worlds from it. Now, worlds like Wonderland, Deep Jungle, and Agrabah have much stronger Heartless chilling there. We also can't go back to Hollow Bastion because the way is blocked off by too many Heartless. Luckily, Sid has a secret navigation gummy for our ship that has information about a secret route we can take to get back to Hollow Bastion. The navigation gummy is hidden in the underground cave here in Traverse Town, and when we go there, we see Kairi hanging out. Before we head out, we have one last conversation with Kairi. It's really cathartic to see Sora and Kairi interacting again after so long. And to make things even better, Kairi gives us her lucky charm, a new keychain called Oathkeeper.
It's my lucky charm. Be sure to bring it back to me.
Don't worry, I will.
Promise?
Promise.
Oathkeeper is one of my favorite Keyblades in the series. Not so much for its stats, even though it is a good Keyblade with a slight focus on magic, but I always liked it because of how it symbolized Sora's relationship with Kairi. Now that Kairi is finally rescued, this Keyblade is like the culmination of our adventure thus far. But enough feelings and good vibes, let's turn our attention to Riku, who's trapped in a void of darkness after getting possessed by Ansem. Luckily, it doesn't seem like he's alone there because someone speaking in text tells Riku that he's going to come to help him. They need to close the door of darkness to stop the Heartless, but it has to be locked from both sides, meaning they'll need 2 Keyblades. But anyway, let's head back to Hollow Bastion. When we get back to Hollow Bastion, we realize that we don't have any of our previous Hollow Bastion save points unlocked anymore to warp to. So we're gonna have to speedrun Hollow Bastion. This is one of my only criticisms with Hollow Bastion. I wish we didn't have to go through the same areas again. I feel like once we got to Hollow Bastion, all of our old warp points should have come back. But luckily, it's shorter than the first time through. And before long, we're back at the chapel where we fought Maleficent, and we find the Disney Princesses of Heart sans Belle just kind of standing around chatting. I guess getting kidnapped is a decent enough conversation starter. We make our way into the Grand Hall, and inside there's a treasure chest up on this ledge. This treasure chest has a new keychain. Kinda weird that a new Keyblade upgrade is just hanging out in a random chest, but hey, I'm not complaining because this new Keyblade, Oblivion, is sick. Its magic isn't good, but the strength is great, and it also has great reach. In my mind, Oblivion represents Riku in the same way that Oathkeeper represents Kairi. One is dark, one is light. One specializes in strength, one specializes in magic. You get access to both of them around the same time too, which only makes me think it was intentional even more. In any case, it's time to seal the keyhole, but first, we gotta fight this chunky boy. This is the Behemoth Heartless, and get used to seeing him because the endgame of Kingdom Hearts likes to use him a lot. I do like this guy from a gameplay perspective since you have to jump on his back to reach his weak spot. Once we defeat him, we hear someone saying our name, and we find out that Leon and Co are here. Apparently they hitched a ride on Sid's ship. Oh, okay, I guess that's how they got to Olympus Coliseum for the tournaments. Obviously, we have to stop Ansem, but unfortunately, by stopping Ansem and restoring the Lost Worlds, everyone will be sent back to their homeworlds, and the passageways that are connecting all of the worlds will be closed off, meaning it's possible we won't ever see each other again. It's a small price to pay to save the universe, though, so we seal Hollow Bastion's keyhole. Afterwards, the Princesses of Heart upgrade our Fyra to its final form, the 3rd tier spell, Firaga. This is the only 3rd tier magic spell that's mandatory. Every other one is optional, which I think is pretty cool. I decided to take a trip back to Hollow Bastion's library, and while there, Aerith gives us more pages of Ansem's report. While Ansem did seem enthusiastic to learn more about the darkness and other worlds in his report, he never seemed outright evil. That is, until we read these reports, which show just how crazy this guy was. He took people and began experimenting on them. Not only that, but he began feeding people to the Heartless. This guy was a major creep. One more reason why we gotta finish this guy off for good. One of the other cool things that we get to see in the library is Beast finally reuniting with Belle. Belle even moves up my Disney Princess tier list by giving us a new keychain, Divine Rose. It has a short reach, but it makes up for it with its great strength that even surpasses Oblivion, while not having the drawback of Oblivion's worst magic stat. This game really does throw a lot of Keyblades at you at the tail end of the game. Before taking on the final world of the game, I tried my hand at a new cup at the Olympus Coliseum, the Hades Cup, but I got smacked up by Cerberus, so I left. But I did manage to get a new spell in the tournament though, our final upgrade for ice magic, Blizzaga, which you get for defeating this behemoth in the 40th seed of the Hades Cup. So at least I didn't leave here empty-handed. Now, it's time we head to the last world of the game, simply called End of the World. This place is barren and empty, the exact opposite of Hollow Bastion. This place is a collection of the remnants of the worlds lost to the Heartless. Goofy even calls it a Heartless world. This place feels foreboding, but also relaxing at the same time. It's interesting. We fight some enemies, including a few more behemoths, and we end up in this really cool looking ravine that looks like it has gummy ship parts everywhere. The deeper we go into this place, the less relaxing this place becomes, and the more horrifying it begins to look. You know how some games have boss rushes? Well, Kingdom Hearts has stage rushes, where we go through bite-sized versions of some of the worlds we've been to. While it is kind of nice in a look how far we've come sort of way, it does feel a bit lazy. It would have been way cooler if we got little bite-sized sections of worlds that we haven't been to, like Beauty and the Beast's world, or the Land of Dragons from Mulan, which we already know exist in the Kingdom Hearts universe because both Beast and Mushu show up in this game. Eventually though, we make it to this hallway, and in this little lab tucked off to the side, we see this odd-looking machine machine, and by examining it, we learn about Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, the thing this game is named after. Apparently, it's a humongous heart of immense power behind the Door of Darkness that Ansem was seeking by opening the final keyhole. After the lore dump / plot recap, we make our way to the next boss, Chernabog from the 1940 film Fantasia. Yeah, he just kinda shows up. We get to fly during this boss fight, which is really cool, and after beating him, we get a new shared ability, Super Glide, which is a faster version of our old glide. We go deeper and deeper into End of the World, and we get some unsettling imagery of worlds that have been swallowed up by darkness. Our next challenge is the Final Rest Door, which is a gauntlet of enemies that we have to fight before we can finally go through this door that leads to the Final Rest, the last save point in the game. This is your last chance to go buy items, visit old worlds, and do anything else you have to do. Once we step through this door, the same door that we walked through when we went inside of that cave on that stormy night on Destiny Islands, that's it. There's no going back. Let's go. Inside the door we see Destiny Islands, the place where it all began, and also the place where it all ends. Everything seems fine, but Destiny Islands is slowly corrupted. While I do prefer Hollow Bastion, I do like how the final battle of this game takes place on a corrupted version of the place where we started our journey. Eventually we face Ansem, who spouts a bunch of nonsense about how everything starts and ends with darkness, and then we start the final boss gauntlet.
Every heart return to darkness.
The first phase of this fight is a straight up battle against Ansem. If you thought you were going to gang up on Ansem with your boys Donald and Goofy, you are sadly mistaken because Ansem brought his homie, the Guardian, to protect him. The Ansem fight is not too bad, but the thing that can make this boss fight tough is that his Guardian can actually possess you. When it does this, occasionally your action command becomes the freeze command, and if you hit X, the Guardian will come and grab you, holding you still for Ansem to do some damage. I haven't talked much about the command menu, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You use the directional pad to move through the menu, and by hitting the X button, you do whatever command you have highlighted, from attacking enemies to using magic, etc. You can go into the pause menu when you're not in combat and set certain spells to L1 shortcuts. By holding L1 and pressing the corresponding button, you can easily access your commonly used spells without having to navigate through the command menu, which can be very annoying to do at times, especially during tense battles. Also, why are there only 3 L1 shortcuts when there's 4 face buttons? Usually I have Cure, Arrow, and whatever random spell I like that day queued up in my shortcuts. I know this is a fine time to be talking about this, but hey, technically we're on Destiny Islands, which is the first world of the game, so I'm actually doing this at an appropriate time. In any case, Ansem goes down, but obviously he's still got more left in the tank. You do get a brief opportunity to heal up with items or change your weapons if need be, which is nice. We head on over to this massive crater looking thing, but unfortunately Donald and Goofy have to hang back thanks to this conveniently invisible barrier that only works for Donald and Goofy. Why don't all of the bosses just do this? Darkseid wants another run back, but luckily he's pretty easy. It really shows you just how far we've come since the beginning of the game. Unluckily, that was only Ansem's way of wearing you down, because now he wants his own run back against you, but without your entourage. It's definitely more challenging now that it's both of them ganging up on you, especially since he's still using that move where he gets his Guardian to possess you. After beating Ansem again, he decides to stop playing around and he brings you into this dark void space place thing where he reveals his true form, a very suggestive looking battleship that his body is connected to. Donald and Goofy are taken away, but before Sora falls into darkness, he hears Riku's voice and Sora gets ready for action. Ansem attacks you with a double-sided version of Riku's Soul Edge, the sword that he uses for most of the game. After kicking his rear end again, Ansem decides to take a nap. Now we have to go inside of Ansem's battleship and destroy it from the inside. Inside of Ansem we find Goofy, then we have to fight Ansem's very fleshy battleship, then we go inside of the battleship's mouth and oh man, this is just getting really nasty. Anyway, we find Donald. With the whole crew together and the disgusting front of the battleship gone, we go and destroy this weird sack looking thing with a jack-o'-lantern face on it. Ansem finally wakes up from his nap. I could use one myself because man, this boss fight has way too many phases, but Ansem should have slept a little bit longer because just like before, we take him down. His battleship explodes in a beautiful eruption of light, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have officially defeated the final boss of Kingdom Hearts. We have beaten the game. But before we end things, we got some cutscenes. Ansem is looking like he needs another refill on dark power, and it looks like the door to Kingdom Hearts is gonna give it to him, but then Sora hits us with one of his most memorable lines in the game.
You're wrong. I know now, without a doubt, Kingdom Hearts is light.
Ansem is finally obliterated by the light. But before we get comfortable, we have to seal the Door of Darkness. The door is too heavy, but guess what? Our boy Riku is here to help us out. Things are looking dicey as more Heartless start to spawn, but suddenly they start to be destroyed thanks to a new friend.
Now, Sora, let's close this door for good.
Mickey is trying to take that MVP trophy away from Tinkerbell by saving us with his own Keyblade from the World of Darkness, a parallel to Sora's Keyblade from the World of Light. We close the door, and by combining the powers of both of our Keyblades, Sora and Mickey are able to seal the Door of Darkness. Sora turns around and sees Kairi. Donald wants to say what's up, but Goofy, being the real one that he is, lets his boy Sora have a moment with his crush. Sora and Kairi hold hands for a moment, and Sora promises to come back to her. Then Kairi says,
I know you will.
Kairi is sent back to Destiny Islands, which is fully restored after being swallowed by darkness. She goes into the cave where Sora drew that picture of him giving Kairi a Paopu fruit, and she reciprocates this by drawing herself giving Sora a Paopu fruit, signifying that their destinies are forever intertwined. This is all done with Utada Hikaru's Simple and Clean playing in the background. Not the electronic house remix used in the game's opening, but the original lovely song that totally doesn't make me want to cry. Then the credits roll. During the credits we get little epilogue movies showing what happened to all of the characters. Donald's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who ran the item shop, all return to Disney Castle with Minnie and Daisy. Cloud and Aerith reunite. Pinocchio becomes a real boy. Jasmine and Aladdin... Oh my gosh, wait, is this kissing in my Kingdom Hearts? Anyway, Tidus, Selphie, and Waka make it back to Destiny Islands. The Disney princesses just kind of stand there and do stuff on an empty black background. And lastly, we see Sora, Donald, and Goofy walking through a path on a field of grass. They plan on continuing to look for Riku and Mickey, who they haven't seen since they closed the Door of Darkness. And luckily they see Pluto, who has a letter with the king's seal on it. We get one final message telling Sora that he will be the one to open the door to the light, and the game officially ends. Wow, it's honestly a little surreal now that the game is over and this video is over. I guess I should give my thoughts. First, let's get the negatives out of the way first. The game does have some issues. I mentioned before that the second Hollow Bastion visit feels kind of unnecessary. End of the World feels like a missed opportunity for them to use other Disney worlds without making full maps with multiple rooms. Personally, I think the final boss fight kinda drags. Some of the worlds like Deep Jungle and Atlantica can be a bit obtuse at first. I think the simplified models that they use for some scenes don't look good, especially compared to the much better fluidly animated models with eye movements and full lip syncing that they use for bigger, more important scenes. But besides those criticisms, I love this game. Each world feels unique and distinct in its level design. The combat gives you plenty of freedom with the different ways you can approach it. There's so many secrets and optional content. Despite being a pretty whimsical tale of friendship and fun, fitting of a Disney game, Kingdom Hearts manages to have a really gloomy and foreboding atmosphere that I think makes the game feel more grounded, in a nice middle ground that's not too silly but not too dark either. The story is surprisingly pretty good. It isn't the most groundbreaking plot ever, but each world, even the optional ones, feel like they build upon the narrative in some way. Wonderland introduces us to our first Princess of Heart, our first keyhole, and the concept of meddling. Olympus Coliseum gives Sora new rivals to overcome. And it's also one of the first places where Sora internalizes that his friends are his power. Deep Jungle is where Sora, Donald, and Goofy actually become friends. Agrabah is where we first learn about the villain's plot. We learn Riku is working with the bad guys, and we also learn that some of the Disney characters are aware of the original Kingdom Hearts stuff. Monstro is where Sora and Riku's friendship is broken. Atlantica has Ariel, who goes through a similar character arc as Riku, where they both side with darkness to explore new worlds. And Atlantica also reveals that Keyblade wielders are known to cause chaos and turmoil. Halloween Town shows us that Heartless can be tamed and manipulated for good, the same way they can be used for evil. And Neverland is where Sora finally finds Kairi. It's where we see that Riku has fully become evil, and it's where we learn the name of Maleficent's lair. And even 100 Acre Wood, which at first seems like it doesn't really do anything, but if you think about it, it introduces the concept of worlds within worlds, and the concept of worlds inside forms of media. And lastly, when it comes to worlds, of course all of the Kingdom Hearts original worlds are super integral to the plot. In Kingdom Hearts, there's good foreshadowing, there's character arcs, and there's great emotional payoffs. I've heard people call Kingdom Hearts 1 story simple, but it does that simplicity well. One thing I didn't mention much at all was the music, but man is this soundtrack stellar. Hollow Bastion's theme is a tense yet elegant piece. Kairi's theme is this beautifully melancholic tune. Forza del Male is a great boss theme filled with so many moving parts. I'll be here all day if I talk any more about this game at all, so I think it's about time I wrap things up. This is still a great game that blends action-adventure games with RPG mechanics and even some platforming for good measure. These different gameplay elements, along with the surprisingly good narrative and fantastic music, blend together very well into a really special game. With all of that being said, this really long Kingdom Hearts video is finally over. Or is it? Big Kingdom Hearts fans will probably realize that there's quite a few things that I didn't cover in this game. Kingdom Hearts is a JRPG, and like any good JRPG, there's a ton of in-game / post-game content. I haven't gotten all of the Keyblades, I haven't gotten all of the spells, I haven't gotten all of the summons, I haven't finished all of the worlds, and I haven't beaten all of the optional in-game bosses. There is still a decent chunk of hours left of content in this game, so if you want me to cover all of that stuff in another video, then leave a like or just let me know in the comments. Also, leave a comment with another video game that you want me to do a video like this on. With all that being said though, thanks for watching everyone, and have a great rest of your day.